10 years of my life disappeared into my parents' mortgage payments. 10 years of overtime, cancelled vacations, and just until things get better. But watching my father laugh about throwing me away like a used tissue, that's the moment everything changed. I'm Natalia, and until last night, I was the perfect daughter. The responsible one. The one who gave up her dreams of graduate school to help keep the family afloat after Dad's business took a hit in 2008. Meanwhile, my younger brother Jordan lived rent-free in their basement, finding himself, through failed startups and half-finished coding boot camps. "Just help us through this rough patch," Mom would say, her eyes wide and pleading. "Your brother's still figuring things out." She'd squeeze my hand across their kitchen table, the same one where I'd done my homework as a kid. "You're so strong, sweetheart. So capable." I believed her. Every month, I'd transfer $2,800 to their account. Every Christmas, I'd smile when Jordan got the latest gaming console while I got discount bath sets. Every family dinner, I'd nod along as Dad praised Jordan's entrepreneurial spirit. Last night wasn't supposed to be different. I'd stopped by to drop off Mum's birthday present, a silk scarf I couldn't really afford. The lights were dim, but their voices carried from the kitchen. "She's such a sucker," Jordan was saying. My hand froze on the doorknob. "Did you see her face when I told her about my new business idea? She actually offered to help with startup costs." Dad's laugh, rough like sandpaper. "Well, that's what she's there for, isn't it? Once you're set up properly, we won't need her anymore." "What about the mortgage?" Jordan asked. "Please. By then, your crypto investments will have paid off, and if they don't, well, that's what the trust fund is for, the one she doesn't know about." I pressed myself against the wall, my heart thundering. The trust fund? My money. They'd been diverting my payments into a trust fund for Jordan. "You should have seen her last week," Jordan continued, going on about how she had to cancel her vacation because of unexpected expenses. Meanwhile, I'm booking my trip to Bali. "That's my boy." Dad's chair scraped against the floor. "Your sister's good at one thing, making money. Let her do what she's best at. Speaking of which, did you talk to that financial advisor friend of hers? The ex-boyfriend? Vincenzo? Yeah, he's on board. Said he'll help us manage her portfolio once she finally starts investing properly." My fingers dug into the gift bag, crushing the tissue paper. The scarf suddenly felt like a noose. Perfect. Dad's voice grew closer. "Anne keeps saying we should be more grateful, but honestly, Natalia's just doing what a daughter should. It's not like she has her own family to support." I backed away from the door, my designer heels, bought second-hand, silent on their expensive hardwood floors I'd helped pay for. Outside, the cool night air hit my face like a slap. My phone buzzed, a text from Mum. "Where are you, sweetie? Thought you were stopping by." I stared at the message, at the little heart emoji she'd added. All these years, I'd thought she was just weak, caught between Dad's schemes and Jordan's demands. But she knew. She had to know. Another buzz. "Dad says we should discuss increasing the monthly transfer. The property taxes went up again. Call me tomorrow?" I looked up at their house. My house, really, given how much I'd paid into it. Light spilled from the kitchen window, and I could see them in there, probably still laughing, still plotting. My hands stopped shaking. The crushing pain in my chest crystallized into something harder, colder, more useful. I opened my banking app and checked the joint account I shared with them, the one they'd insisted on for emergencies. The balance showed $127,803.42, a decade of my excess funds sitting there like low-hanging fruit. Dad's voice echoed in my head. "Once you're set up properly, we won't need her anymore." I smiled, and it felt like breaking glass. They were right about one thing. I am good at making money. But they're about to learn I'm even better at taking it back. The bank website blinked at me. Transfer complete. I'd left exactly $5.73 in the joint account, enough to make them feel the humiliation of insufficient funds when their next automatic payment hit. My hands were steady as I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop. Already, 3 missed calls from Mum lit up my phone. I silenced it and texted Sydney instead. Need to talk, now. 20 minutes later, Sydney was at my door with Thai takeout and her trademark concerned expression. "You look like hell," she said, kicking off her heels. "I just moved over 100 grand. I grabbed plates from the kitchen, and I'm about to burn my entire family to the ground. Sydney froze halfway through unpacking the food. What happened? I told her everything. The conversation I'd overheard, the trust fund, their plans with Vincenzo. By the time I finished, the pad thai was cold, and Sydney's face had transformed from concern to fury. Those manipulative pieces of... She stopped herself. Wait, Vincenzo? Your ex? The one who kept pushing you to combine finances? Yeah, I stabbed at my noodles. Suddenly, his insistence on managing my portfolio makes a lot more sense. My phone buzzed again. Dad, this time. What the hell did you do? Call me immediately! Sydney read the message over my shoulder and snorted. Oh, they're panicking now? Good. They probably just tried to make a payment. I showed her my laptop screen, where I'd pulled up the joint account's transaction history. See? Every month for 10 years. Mortgage payments, property taxes, home improvements, even Jordan's car payments. Jesus. Sydney scrolled through the numbers. This is straight up financial abuse. But moving the money, they could come after you legally. Let them try. I pulled out a folder I'd been keeping for years. Every email where they promised to pay me back. Every text about temporary help. And this, I slapped down a document with my father's signature. A written agreement that all funds were loans to be repaid. You clever bitch, Sydney grinned. You've been planning this, not consciously, but I've always kept records. I took a long sip of wine. The question is, what now? Now? Sydney pulled out her phone. Now we call my friend Lillian. She's a probate lawyer who specializes in family financial disputes, and... She held up a finger as I started to protest. Before you say no, think about this. Do you want revenge, or do you want results? My phone lit up with a text from Jordan. Dad's having chest pains because of you. Hope you're happy, you selfish witch. Both, I said quietly. I want both. Sydney nodded and started dialing. Then let's do this right. Make them feel every single penny they stole from you. As she talked to Lillian, I opened my email. There, buried in my archived folders, was the last message from Vincenzo before we broke up. You're making a mistake, Nat. I could help you build real wealth. Your family agrees. I've discussed it with your father. Just trust me with your portfolio. At the time, I'd thought he was being controlling. Now I understood. He'd been their inside man all along. I forwarded the email to a new folder labeled Evidence. My phone buzzed again. Mom this time. Please, sweetie, whatever you're upset about, we can talk about this. Your father's beside himself. We're family. Family. The word tasted like ashes now. Lillian can see you tomorrow at 9, Sydney announced, ending her call. She says to bring every document you have. And Nat? She waited until I looked up. She says this is just the beginning. There are ways to trace where your money went, to follow every dollar they diverted. I thought about the trust fund they'd mentioned, built with my sacrifice savings, about Jordan's luxury vacations while I worked overtime, about a decade of manipulation so subtle I'd mistaken it for love. Tell her I'll be there. I opened my banking app again, this time to my personal account. The transferred money sat there, a war chest for what was coming. And Sydney? Thank you. She squeezed my hand. They thought you were their ATM. Time to show them you're actually their worst nightmare. Another text flashed on my phone. Vincenzo. Hey stranger, been thinking about you. Coffee sometime. I showed Sydney the message, and her eyes lit up with wicked understanding. Oh, this is perfect. He has no idea you know, does he? No, I said, already typing a response, and we're going to keep it that way. For now. The pieces were falling into place. Tomorrow I'd see Lillian, but tonight I had some documents to organize and a very interesting coffee date to plan. Lillian's office smelled like leather and money. She flipped through my documents with manicured fingers, occasionally making notes on her tablet. I'd been sitting here for 45 minutes, watching her face grow progressively darker. This is... She paused, choosing her words carefully. This is methodical. The way they structured these transfers, the timing of their requests. They knew exactly what they were doing. How bad is it? She turned her tablet around. On the screen was a complex flowchart of transactions. See these transfers? They weren't just using your money for the mortgage. They were investing it. My stomach clenched. The trust fund they mentioned? Better. Lillian's smile was razor sharp. Your father opened multiple investment accounts under Jordan's name, used your mortgage payments as seed money. The total value now? Just over $200,000. The room tilted slightly. 200,000? And that's just what I can trace easily. She leaned forward. Want to know the best part? The accounts are linked to your parents' tax returns. They've been claiming the gains, but the initial investments came from you. Can you prove it? With a court order? Absolutely. She pulled out a fresh legal pad. But before we go nuclear, let's talk strategy. You mentioned your ex-boyfriend Vincenzo is somehow involved? I nodded, pulling out my phone to show her our recent text exchange. We'd scheduled coffee for tomorrow. Perfect. Lillian made another note. Don't tip your hand. We need to know exactly how deep this goes. But first... She turned her screen again, showing me a document I'd never seen before. Do you recognize this? My blood ran cold. It was a life insurance policy, in my name, with Jordan listed as the sole beneficiary. When... My voice cracked. When did they take this out? 3 months ago. Lillian's voice was gentle. The premiums are being paid from one of those investment accounts. Your money, paying for a policy you never knew about. The implications hit me like a physical blow. They weren't just planning to cut me off. They were setting up a backup plan. One that would benefit them more if I was... I think I'm going to be sick. Lillian handed me a glass of water. This changes things. We're not just dealing with financial abuse anymore. This is fraud, possibly criminal conspiracy. My phone buzzed. Another text from Mom. Please come to dinner tonight. We need to talk as a family. Don't respond, Lillian advised, reading over my shoulder. In fact, don't contact them at all. Let them panic. They've been calling constantly, showing up at my office. Good. Let them make scenes, document everything. She started typing rapidly on her computer. I'm filing for an emergency injunction on those investment accounts, and we're getting that life insurance policy cancelled immediately. I thought about all those family dinners, all those times they'd insisted I drink the wine they'd poured, the headaches I'd sometimes get afterward. Had they already been? Stop! Lillian's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. Whatever you're thinking, stop. We deal with facts now, not fears. Here's what you're going to do. She outlined the plan. Meet with Vincenzo, record everything, let him incriminate himself. Meanwhile, she'd start the legal process to freeze the accounts and investigate the paper trail. What about my parents? Jordan? Radio silence. Let them stew. She handed me a business card. This is a private investigator I trust. He'll document their reactions, their movements, every panicked conversation in public, every attempt to contact you. My phone buzzed again, Jordan this time. Mum's in tears. Dad can barely eat. Hope you're proud of destroying this family. Lillian read the message and smiled coldly. They're trying to guilt you. Classic abuser tactics. But here's what they don't understand. You're not their victim anymore. You're their reckoning. I stood up, gathering my documents. How long until they realize how much trouble they're in? Oh, they already know. That's why they're desperate to talk. She walked me to the door. But soon they'll learn the difference between family drama and federal fraud charges. As I left her office, another text came through, from Vincenzo. Looking forward to catching up tomorrow. I have some interesting investment opportunities to discuss. I showed it to Lillian, who was already reaching for her phone. I'm calling in a favor. Tomorrow's coffee meeting. You'll have backup nearby. Every word will be recorded. For the first time in days, I felt something close to calm. They'd spent years weaving their web, thinking I was just a fly. They never noticed I was a spider too. One more thing, Lillian called as I reached the elevator. Check your mail carefully. People like this, when they realize they're caught, they often try to hide assets or create new insurance policies. The doors closed on her knowing smile, and I pressed the lobby button with steady hands. Tomorrow, I'd have coffee with a traitor. Tonight, I had some mail to sort through. The coffee shop buzzed with morning energy as Vincenzo slid into the seat across from me. He looked exactly the same. Expensive watch, calculated smile, perfect hair. 2 years ago, that smile made my heart race. Now it made my skin crawl. Nat, he said warmly, setting down his artisanal coffee. You look amazing. I touched the small recorder in my jacket pocket, drawing strength from it. Thanks. How's the financial advisory business? Booming. Actually, that's partly why I wanted to meet. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. I've been thinking about our past conversations about investment strategies. I was right, wasn't I? About combining resources? I forced a laugh. Still trying to manage my portfolio? I care about your future, Nat. Always have. His hand reached for mine. I pulled back, pretending to adjust my coffee cup. Actually, I recently spoke with your father about some exciting opportunities. There it was. I kept my face neutral. Oh? When did you talk to my father? We've stayed in touch. He's worried about you, you know. Says you've been making some impulsive financial decisions lately. My phone buzzed. Right on cue. A text from Dad. Your card was declined at Morton's last night. Embarrassing. Call me immediately. I showed Vincenzo the message, watching his reaction. His eyes flickered with recognition. He'd known this was coming. See? He gestured at my phone. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Let me help. I can stabilize your finances, create a solid investment plan. Your father already approved. My father approved? I interrupted, voice sharp. Why would my father's approval matter for my investments? Vincenzo backpedaled smoothly. I just meant he agrees it's a good idea. He mentioned you've been supporting the family. Admirable, but maybe not the best long-term strategy. And what would be a better strategy? Let me show you. He pulled out his tablet, pulling up some documents. I've drafted a preliminary plan. We transfer your assets to a managed account, my firm's naturally. Then we diversify into some specific funds I've selected. As he talked, I noticed his leg bouncing under the table. Nervous tell. He'd always done that when lying. Interesting, I said. And would these funds be similar to the ones you helped my father set up? The ones using my mortgage payments? His coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. I don't know what you... Or maybe like the trust fund you helped them hide from me. I kept my voice conversational, even as his face drained of color. $200,000, Vincenzo. That's a lot of redirected money. Natalia, listen. No, you listen. I pulled out my phone, showing him the banking app. See this? Every transfer, every transaction. All traced and documented. Want to guess how many federal regulations you violated by helping them? He stood up so quickly, his chair scraped loudly. Several people turned to look. You're making a mistake. Your father won't— My father won't what? Keep paying you consulting fees? Too late. I smiled up at him. By the way, the SEC is very interested in unlicensed financial advisors who assist in fraud schemes. I wonder what they'll find when they audit your practice. You wouldn't dare. I already did. Check your office voicemail. His face contorted. For a moment, I thought he might cause a scene. Instead, he grabbed his coat with shaking hands. You're going to regret this, he hissed. Your whole family will. No, Vincenzo, you will. I held up my phone, showing the recording app. Every word of this conversation is already being transcribed and sent to my lawyer. Want to threaten me again? He practically ran from the coffee shop. Through the window, I watched him pull out his phone, probably calling my father. Perfect. Sydney emerged from a nearby table where she'd been sitting incognito. That was beautiful, she said, sliding into Vincenzo's abandoned seat. Did you see his face when you mentioned the SEC? Think he'll warn them? Oh, definitely. Your father's probably having a stroke right now. She checked her watch. Just in time for their monthly country club lunch, too. Very public venue for a meltdown. My phone started buzzing with texts. Dad. What have you done? Mom. Please stop this madness. Jordan. You psychotic bitch! I showed them to Sydney, who grinned. Right on schedule. Lillian's investigator is at the country club now, ready to document everything. Good. I stood up, gathering my things. Because Phase 2 starts tonight. The utilities? Every single one. I checked my own watch. By dinner time, their power, water, and cable will all be disconnected. Amazing how fast companies respond when you prove account fraud. Sydney's eyes gleamed. And the mortgage payment? Due tomorrow, with the joint account empty and their cards declined. I shrugged. I hear late fees are brutal these days. We walked out into the sunny morning, leaving Vincenzo's untouched coffee cooling on the table. In my pocket, the recorder held enough evidence to destroy his career, but that was just the beginning. Tonight, my family would learn what real consequences felt like. Lillian's conference room felt like a war room as we watched the security feed from my parents' meeting in the adjacent office. They'd come expecting to file emergency mortgage paperwork. Instead, they were walking into an ambush. Mrs. Hoffman, Lillian's voice came through the speakers, cool and professional. Mr. Hoffman, please, have a seat. My mother's hands twisted her designer purse, the one I'd bought her last Christmas. We were told this was about a mortgage modification? Not exactly. Lillian opened a thick folder. This meeting is about financial fraud, tax evasion, and criminal conspiracy. Dad's face reddened. Now see here. No, you see here. Lillian slid documents across the table. 10 years of diverted mortgage payments, investment accounts opened with fraudulent documentation, and this— She produced a copy of the life insurance policy. Care to explain why you took out a policy on your daughter without her knowledge? Mom's face went white. That's not— We were just trying to protect the family. By planning your daughter's death? How dare you? Dad slammed his hand on the table. We would never— Really? Lillian played an audio clip, my conversation with Vincenzo. Dad's face changed from red to grey as his own name came up repeatedly in the recording. That proves nothing, he stammered. No? Then perhaps these will. More documents appeared. Bank statements showing systematic theft, emails discussing how to manage your daughter's assets without her knowledge, and my personal favorite, she held up a printed conversation. Text messages between you and your son discussing how to, quote, get rid of the problem once the trust fund matures. In the observation room, Sydney squeezed my hand. On screen, my mother had started crying. We can explain, she sobbed. We only wanted to steal from your daughter? Lillian's voice could have frozen hell. To potentially harm her for insurance money. The FBI is very interested in that part, by the way. Dad stood up so fast his chair toppled. This is ridiculous. Where is Natalia? We demand to speak with her. Your daughter isn't here, Lillian smiled, but her lawyers are, and her evidence is. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Is this blackmail? Dad sputtered. This is consequence. Lillian opened another folder. Option 1. You sign these papers. Full confession, complete asset disclosure, immediate transfer of all fraudulent accounts back to Natalia. You walk away broke but free. And option 2? Mom whispered. I make a phone call, and federal agents arrive to discuss insurance fraud and conspiracy charges. Your choice. Dad reached for the papers, then hesitated. We need to think about this. You have 30 seconds. This is outrageous! He grabbed his coat. Come on, Anne. We're leaving. That would be unwise. Lillian pressed a button on her phone. Security? 2 large men entered the room. Sir, please sit down. Federal agents are already en route. Mom collapsed into tears. Fletcher, please, just sign it. Listen to your wife, Lillian advised, because once those agents arrive, this generous offer disappears. In the observation room, I watched my father age 10 years in 10 seconds. His hands shook as he reached for the papers. Initial here, Lillian pointed. And here. This transfers the trust fund back to Natalia. This surrenders all claim to the property. This is your confession. Page after page, signature after signature. Mum could barely hold the pen through her sobs. When it was done, Lillian gathered the papers. You'll be hearing from the tax authorities shortly. I suggest getting your own lawyers. Good ones. Can we at least talk to Natalia? Mom pleaded. Your daughter. Lillian's smile was arctic. She's watching everything. Has been all along. Would you like to say something to the camera? They both looked up, finally noticing the small lens in the corner. Mom reached toward it, mouth opening. I switched off the feed. You okay? Sydney asked softly. Better than okay. I turned to Lillian as she entered our room. Is it done? Signed and notarized. She handed me the folder. The trust fund transfers tomorrow. They're completely cut off. My phone buzzed. Jordan. What the fuck did you make them sign? Dad's having chest pains for real this time. Your brother's next, Lillian said, reading the message. The IRS is particularly interested in his role in all this. Good. I stood up, gathering my things. Send me the bill. Already taken care of. Your parents just paid it, part of their settlement. She walked me to the elevator. One last thing. Change your locks. People like this, they don't go quietly. As if on cue, another text from Mum. You've destroyed us. I hope you're satisfied. You're no longer our daughter. I showed it to Lillian, who shook her head. No, Mrs. Hoffman, she murmured. You destroyed yourselves. Natalia just showed you the mirror. The elevator doors closed on their reflection, and I felt nothing but clean, cold satisfaction. Phase 3 would begin tomorrow. Tonight, somewhere in the city, my family was learning what it meant to be truly broke. Just like they'd planned for me. The headline on Sydney's laptop made me smile. Financial abuse in affluent families, a hidden epidemic. The article didn't name names, but anyone who knew my family would recognize the story. Your father's law firm called, Sydney said, closing the browser. He's been placed on administrative leave pending an ethics investigation. How tragic. I sipped my coffee, scanning my emails. Oh look, Jordan's crypto accounts are frozen. Seems the IRS has some questions about his funding sources. The elevator dinged, and our office receptionist burst in. Natalia, your mother's here. She's making a scene in the lobby. I pulled up the security feed on my computer. There was Mom, designer clothes now wrinkled, mascara streaking her face as she waved papers at the security guard. Should I call the police? The receptionist asked. No need. I pressed the intercom. Send her up. Sydney raised an eyebrow. You sure about this? Watch and learn. Mom burst through my office door moments later, wild-eyed and desperate. How could you? Your father might lose his license. Jordan's accounts are frozen. We can't even pay our electric bill. Sounds stressful. I kept my voice neutral. Maybe Jordan can get a job? He's your brother. She slammed her hands on my desk. We're your family. Family. I stood slowly. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't conspire. Family doesn't take out life insurance policies without consent. That was your father's idea. I never... Never what? Never knew. Never participated. I pulled out my phone, played a recording. Her voice, discussing with Dad how to handle me once Jordan was set up. She collapsed into a chair, deflating. We were going to pay you back. With what? The money you stole from me? You don't understand, she whispered. Jordan needed... security. I pressed my intercom. Please escort my mother out. She's no longer welcome in this building. Natalia, please! She reached for me as 2 guards entered. We can fix this. You can't fix what you broke on purpose. I turned back to my computer as they led her away, her sobs echoing down the hallway. Sydney waited until the elevator closed. That was ice cold. She's lucky I didn't press charges. My phone buzzed, an email from Lillian. Speaking of charges, the email contained a court filing. Dad was suing me for emotional damages, claiming I'd manipulated and extorted them. He's desperate, Sydney said, reading over my shoulder. His lawyer must know this is suicide. My phone rang. Lillian. Your father's attorney just withdrew from the case, she announced without preamble. Apparently, he didn't appreciate learning about the fraud evidence after filing. How unfortunate. I forwarded her the security footage of Mum's meltdown. For your records. Perfect. Oh, and Natalia, a package arrived at my office for you. Security flagged it. Ice slid down my spine. What kind of package? The concerning kind? Old family photos with your eyes scratched out. A rather graphic note about dying alone. Police are processing it for fingerprints. I ended the call, hands steady despite the threat. My phone lit up with texts from Jordan. Hope you're happy now. Dad's reputation is ruined. Mom's having a breakdown. You're dead to us. And finally, watch your back, sis. Sydney read the messages and immediately called building security. We need an escort for Natalia, and check all incoming mail. A knock at my door made us both jump. It was the receptionist again, holding a thick envelope. This just came by courier. Had to sign for it. Inside was a single document, Dad's disbarment notice, effective immediately, pending investigation into ethical violations. They really thought they'd win this, Sydney marveled, that you'd just roll over and take it forever. Their mistake. I added the notice to my growing file. But they're not done yet. What do you mean? I showed her my laptop screen, an email from an anonymous source containing years of my father's client records, evidence of more fraud, more victims. Someone at his firm is turning on him, Sydney whispered. Several someones. I forwarded the email to Lillian. Rats fleeing a sinking ship. My phone buzzed again, a news alert. The local business journal was running a story about my father's firm, highlighting suspicious patterns in client accounts. Sydney squeezed my shoulder. You did it. You actually brought them down. Not yet. I opened my drawer, pulled out one last file. Remember that life insurance policy? I had Lillian dig deeper. Turns out it wasn't the first one they took out in my name. What? There were others, starting right after I began paying their mortgage. I handed her the documents. And guess who processed those policies? Sydney's eyes widened. Vincenzo. Exactly. I smiled, and it felt like victory. Want to help me destroy one more career? She grabbed her coat. I thought you'd never ask. The law office conference room felt different this time. My family sat on one side of the table, thinking they were here for a settlement negotiation. Vincenzo sat apart from them, sweating in his expensive suit. Lillian stood by the door, watching like a hawk. Before we begin, Dad announced, trying to sound authoritative despite his rumpled appearance, we want to discuss dropping all charges, returning to the status quo. Interesting proposal. I entered the room slowly, making them all jump, but I have a counteroffer. Mom reached for me. Sweetie, please. Don't. My voice could have frozen fire. First, let's review what we know. I nodded to Lillian, who started playing audio recordings through the room's speakers. Conversations between Dad and Vincenzo about managing my assets. Mom discussing insurance policies. Jordan laughing about stealing my money. Stop this, Dad demanded. Why? Uncomfortable hearing your own voice plotting my financial destruction? I turned to Vincenzo. Or maybe you'd prefer the video evidence. The color drained from his face as Lillian projected emails onto the wall, dozens of them, spanning years, all showing his involvement in the scheme. These are confidential business communications, he protested weakly. Actually, Lillian interjected, they're evidence of insurance fraud, conspiracy, and practicing financial advisory without proper licensing. The SEC is very interested in them. Jordan stood up suddenly. This is bullshit. You can't. Sit down, I snapped. Unless you'd like to explain your crypto accounts to the IRS right now? He sat. Here's what's going to happen. I placed 4 folders on the table. Each of you has a choice. Sign these papers, full confessions, complete asset surrender, and permanent no-contact orders. Or what? Mum whispered. Or I make one phone call, and federal agents arrest everyone in this room except me and Lillian. I checked my watch. They're waiting outside. You have 5 minutes. Dad lunged across the table. You ungrateful little... Security guards materialized instantly, restraining him. He'd forgotten about the panic button under my side of the table. 4 minutes now, I said calmly. Vincenzo broke first, grabbing his folder with shaking hands. I'll sign. Just keep the SEC out of this. Too late. Lillian smiled. They're already investigating. This just determines whether you face charges. Mom was crying again, mascara running. We're your family. No. I finally let my anger show. You're parasites who gave birth to me. There's a difference. 3 minutes, Lillian announced. Jordan grabbed his folder, scanning it frantically. This says I have to repay everything. Down to the last penny you stole from me. I turned to Dad, still held by security. Tick-tock. The next 2 minutes were filled with scratching pens and muffled sobs. One by one, they signed. First Vincenzo, then Jordan, then Mom. Dad held out until the last second, face purple with rage. You'll regret this, he growled, scrawling his signature. No, I won't. I gathered the signed documents. Because unlike you, I can sleep at night, knowing I didn't try to murder my child for insurance money. The room went deadly silent. Oh yes, I continued. Lillian found the toxicology reports from my mysterious illness last year, the one that happened right after you took out the first life insurance policy. Mom made a choking sound. Jordan looked sick. Vincenzo wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Get out, I said quietly. All of you. The guards will escort you. If any of you ever contact me again, these confessions go straight to the FBI. They filed out like broken puppets. At the door, Mom turned back one last time. We loved you, she whispered. No. I met her eyes. You loved what I could give you. There's a difference. After they left, Sydney slipped in through the side door. That was magnificent. It's done? I asked Lillian. She nodded, checking her phone. Transfer orders are executed, their accounts are drained, assets frozen. They'll be lucky to keep their clothes. And Vincenzo? SEC agents are waiting at his office. He'll never work in finance again. My phone buzzed. An email from a headhunting firm I'd contacted weeks ago. A position had opened in their Copenhagen office. Fresh start, ocean away. Take it, Sydney said, reading over my shoulder. You've earned it. What about them? I gestured at the door where my family had disappeared. They made their choices, Lillian said firmly. Now they can live with them. I looked around the conference room one last time, where my family had sat, where they'd signed away their comfortable lives, where I'd finally broken free. You're right. I opened the email, clicked, accept offer. Time for me to make my choice too. Behind me, through the window, I could see them in the parking lot. Huddled together, broken, defeated. Finally facing the consequences of their actions. I turned away. I had a flight to book. The Copenhagen winter sunset paints my office in shades of gold and purple as I finish another successful quarter. My team is celebrating downstairs, but I need a moment alone with my thoughts and my laptop. A notification pops up. Sydney's calling. Have you seen the news? She doesn't wait for hello. Your father's firm just collapsed. Complete shutdown. The fraud investigation killed them. I pull up the article. There's his face, haggard and aged, being escorted from the building. How many clients did they steal from? Dozens. You weren't the only victim, just the only one who fought back. She pauses. Your mother's living with her sister now. Jordan's working retail. And Dad? Facing criminal charges. The life insurance scheme wasn't just aimed at you. They found evidence of 3 other attempts with different victims. My hands don't shake anymore when I think about how close I came to being one of those victims. What about Vincenzo? Oh, you'll love this. He tried to flee to Mexico, got caught at the airport. He's cooperating with investigators now, telling them everything about your father's operation. A knock at my door. My assistant with tonight's event schedule. I'm giving a keynote speech at a financial security conference. Topic: Identifying and escaping financial abuse. I should go, I tell Sydney. The conference starts soon. Wait, one more thing. Remember that trust fund they set up with your stolen money? Hard to forget $200,000. Well, Lillian's team finally traced all the investments. With compound interest and market gains, your total recovery is closer to $500,000. I glance at my banking app, at the numbers that represent not just money, but justice. I'm donating most of it. To what? Organizations that help people escape financial abuse. Seems fitting. My assistant gestures. It's time. I gather my presentation materials, including copies of my own bank statements, the insurance policies, the evidence that brought down an empire of lies. Sydney, thank you for everything. Just promise you'll visit soon. Copenhagen's too far. Actually, I smile, looking at the travel itinerary on my screen. I booked a flight home next month. Not to see them, never again, but to help Lillian with a new project. Oh? We're starting a consulting firm, helping people identify and escape financial predators. Turns out my story struck a nerve. We already have a waiting list. Another knock. The conference organizer this time. The audience is ready. Go give that speech, Sydney says. Show them what survival looks like. I end the call and walk to the auditorium. The room is packed. Hundreds of faces looking up expectantly. My presentation opens with a simple bank statement. The first mortgage payment I ever made for my parents. Financial abuse doesn't always look like stolen credit cards or forged checks, I begin. Sometimes it looks like family. Sometimes it wears the mask of love. In the back of the room, I spot a familiar face, Lillian, who flew in for this moment. She nods encouragingly. My family spent 10 years grooming me as their personal ATM. They nearly killed me for insurance money. They thought I would stay quiet, stay obedient, stay broken. I click to the next slide, the final balance sheet showing their complete financial ruin. They were wrong. Questions flood in after my speech. How did you know? How did you fight back? How did you survive? But one question stands out. Do you regret it? Destroying your family? I think about Mom's tears, Dad's rage, Jordan's threats, about the poison they tried to feed me, the money they stole, the lives they ruined. They destroyed themselves, I answer. I just showed them their reflection. Later, in my apartment overlooking the Danish coast, I open my laptop one last time. There's an email from an unknown sender, a photo of my old family home, now sold to cover Dad's legal fees. The subject line reads, "Missing you." I don't bother opening it. Instead, I look at my calendar for tomorrow. Meetings with investors, lunch with my team, dinner with new friends who never ask me for money or try to slip poison into my wine. My phone buzzes with a text from Lillian. Your father's sentencing is next week. Want the details? No, I reply. I'm done watching their destruction. Time to build something new. I close my laptop and walk to the window. The city lights sparkle like stars, each one representing a story, a struggle, maybe even a victory like mine. They say karma isn't always poetic. Sometimes it's prosaic, simple cause and effect, action and consequence. But sometimes karma wears your face, carries your determination, and delivers exactly the justice you fought for. And sometimes that's poetry enough.